Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Calling Out. If you happen to catch the first episode of this show, then you will remember that this show is a little bit different from the vlog. It's a lot more slow moving, a lot less drone action, in fact, nothing of the sort. So it's basically a way to get you guys directly involved in the content here on the channel. It's my buddy Benton and I reaching out, calling you guys directly and hoping to answer whatever poker question you guys may have, whether that's a hand history or helping you guys sort of navigate the interesting world that is the poker world out there. So hope you guys like it. Leave us some feedback. Let us know what you think, positive or negative, always welcome, and cheers for watching. All right, guys, we're back for episode 2 of Calling Out. Back here with my buddy Benton Blakeman. You guys might remember him from episode 1 of Calling Out. We got some pretty good feedback, mostly positive, I would say predominantly. Mostly, yeah. There might have been one person, a couple of people who said never do this again.
I mean, a couple of really funny comments too, which were really cool. Yeah, my wife loved the one about them liking the chubby guy next to you. she got a kick out of that.
So yeah. We have a new office space here. Last one was temporary, I guess. I don't know if this is officially permanent or not.
It's more permanent.
Yeah, it's more permanent than the last space, yeah. So this is thanks to Poker Atlas for hooking us up with a little bit of office space, make us look a little bit more legit. Benton did the decorating back here.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
The posters are actually whole. They're all the way up.
Yeah. But yeah, how's poker been going? How's Vegas been going?
Good. Good, yeah. Since our last video, just playing a whole bunch.
Yep.
Doing some coaching. Actually, had a lot of people come up to me at the Bellagio after the video and said, "Oh, I saw you in Andrew's video." It's our video, not just Andrew's. Poker's been good. Probably shouldn't even talk about it. It's been so good.
Oh, you don't want to jinx it?
Yeah, exactly. Lots of like vlog run good apparently.
So it must be real. 5'10" or what?
Mainly 5'10". A little bit 10-20, 10-20-40.
Yeah.
And it's really big. I mean, 10-20-40 is like pretty much equivalent of quarter 50. So it's a huge jump from playing 5-10 every day to 10-20-40.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm ready for that jump yet, and I don't think the games are good enough for me personally to play them all the time.
Do you get nervous when you jump up there to 10-20-40?
I get excited at first.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I haven't played like a ton of hours since we last, had episode 1.
Yeah.
So I haven't been able to like find myself in any kind of big pots.
Okay.
So we'll see once those big pots come rolling around.
Yeah.
Like the money's big. You go from $1,500 buy-ins in 5-10 to $4,000 to $8,000 in 10-20, 10-20-40.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like buying for way bigger than $8,000. So.
Yeah. Exciting.
How about you?
For me, I had a pretty fun weekend in London, England. Or week, I should say, a fun week. There was a tournament over the weekend. And then, yeah,
and we won
the tournament. Yeah, we took it. No, we didn't take it down. We didn't cash the tournament. We won a little bit in a cash game session just before that, but they pretty much probably know this already.
Yeah.
They saw the vlogs, hopefully.
Yeah, so did I.
All right, so then we don't need to waste time talking about this. Let's just dive in.
Cool.
I think that's it, right? I don't think there's any sort of formalities to this. The drill,
not really.
The drill is the same. If you want more backstory on my buddy Benton here, check out the previous episode of Calling Out, episode number 1. You can get his full poker backstory, any sort of information you need on Ben. Check out episode 1. Aside from that, we're just going to start calling you guys. I put out the request for phone numbers on Instagram. We got a bunch of phone numbers, and we don't really know what the questions are yet, and we're just going to call people and see what questions need answering, and we're going to do our damnedest to answer them.
Yeah.
That's the drill.
Let's find some.
So let's do it. Let's hop in here. All right. This is who we're calling. We're calling David, and David says he has a 2-5 question for us.
Awesome.
All right. We're calling David. Yeah, I think it's
just reroutes it as a totally different number.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. We had slight technical difficulties, but David is now, I think, calling. Is this David?
Yes, it is.
Hey, David, it's Andrew, and you're here with Benton as well, and you are on Calling Out episode 2.
What is up, Manny? What is up, Benton? How are you guys?
Good. How are you, David?
Good. I'm glad you guys hosted this thing today because I've got the sickest, most disgusting hand from last night over at Pachanga. Andrew, I think you're familiar familiar with Pachanga?
I've been to Pachanga once, I think. All right, let's check out this hand from two. You said 2-5.
It's a 2-5, 500 cap game. The effective stacks are about 500. One guy is a little shorter than that. So like a late middle position and then a hijack or low jack position limps. I look down in the small blind at a 4-5 of clubs. So I just complete at a big blind check. So we go 4 ways. Comes 7 of clubs, 3 of diamonds, 8 of clubs. So I've got the gutter do a straight flush. I check my option.
Okay.
The big blind checks.
Yep.
The middle position checks. And now the hijack position bets $65.
Okay, so check to hijack who bets $65 into about $20.
I flat, big blind folds, and now the middle position player, older Mexican guy, a very face-up player, jams for 300. And not long thereafter does the hijack also jam for 500.
Huh, okay.
So now I'm in a really sick spot. I either have really decent equity and a great price, or I'm absolute toast.
All right, so
that's my question. What do you guys think about that spot?
all right, so yeah, just to recap, so we checked to the last on the flop. We checked to the last position player who bets 65 into $20. We call the 65. The big blind folds, and then the guy in the middle jams all in for 300. The guy who bet the $65, he jams all in for 430, and then it's back on us with a decision.
Yeah, he jams in for 500 total.
He might have started a little higher. So I mean, either way, effectively, yeah, 430.
Oh, okay. All right, Benton, what say you?
The flop, I think, is fine. I definitely would see a lot of people betting here. 4 ways, I would probably prefer a check with 5 high. Facing a $65 bet into 20, I would be calling just as you did. And with the way the action plays out, I personally would have a pretty easy fold when the action gets back to me. This is a limp pot. Ranges are as wide as they can be because it's a limp pot. The big blind is a pretty ABC player, so he probably has some kind of made hand, which your draw plays fine against a made hand, but the problem is the hijack player, could definitely have bigger flushes than you. And it just seems like a really bad spot in an unraised pot to want to get in 100 big blinds with no clue where your equity really is. I mean, you could really have terrible equity in this hand, even though it looks so big.
Yeah.
So I did fold face up, and it was just kind of sick. I kind of felt it. The turn rolls off the 8 of clubs, and the river rolls off the case 3. The short stack shover rolls over pocket 3s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the original raiser mucks. I'm thinking he had top 2. So I think I know it goes either way. It's close, but thinking I had the equity there.
I mean, when you have a 5 high flush draw, you're never dominating anyone's flush draw. So that's kind of the spot that you are a lot more happy to get it in with when you have like the nut flush draw, and it's a lot more likely that someone else can have a worse flush draw.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot easier to just kind of check call it off or whatever. But when you have the 5 high flush draw, you're never dominating anybody. I mean, someone could have the 3 deuce of clubs for a pair and a flush draw, but
also a lot different if you have like ace 9 of clubs as opposed to ace deuce of clubs.
Uh-huh.
I'd be much more willing to just call off with the ace 9 of clubs. You
Like
still have a
2
backdoor
overcards?
straight, but you have the extra
Backdoor straight.
overcard, and who knows what kind of buttons people are clicking these days.
right. Yeah. So I think
that ace 9 of clubs, the short stack shove could easily have that in that spot too. So yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
I think I made the right play there.
their ranges are going to be 2 pair, flush plus straight draw, good flush draws, and then sets. And the 5 high flush draw I don't think does that well against those ranges.
Yeah, I agree.
with some better flush draws and like the backdoor straight draw, like Benton said, you're in a little bit better of a situation. But yeah, with the 5 high flush draw, I think you made a good fold. It's pretty tempting when you have the straight flush redraw as well to like. It's harder to let that go because you just kind of look at that as like a combination of things happening with your hand, but it doesn't really change things too much, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, you just always need to look at the absolute value of your hand. In this spot, you're literally getting it in with a 5 high flush draw with a gut shot straight draw. I mean, forget about the straight flush part, and it's just not a good spot to be in.
Yeah, even like the the gut shot straight draw isn't the good one anyway. So,
Right.
So yeah, I think you made a good fold there.
Right on. Well, hey, cheers to artificially bloating the pots. I'm telling you, it's good down here. So, like I said, the invite's open, boys. Anytime you want to cruise out, it's a good time.
Sounds good. You probably just invited.
Andrew, are you back from England already?
Yeah, we're here in Las Vegas.
Oh, welcome home.
Thanks, man. And maybe we'll see you in the other part of this desert.
You got it. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.
All right, later, man.
All right.
All right, that's call number 1. Hopefully the audio is okay.
Let's do another one.
A straight flush draw.
Straight flush draw.
Love it.
Hard to come by, but
Hard to come by, hard to fold, but good fold.
yeah, definitely a good fold. Especially when they make quads.
Yeah, when quads are coming, you want to fold your flush draws. You heard it here first. All right, carrying on. I think we're going to call Alex here. Alex looks like he has a hand question for us.
All right, let's do it.
All right, Alex, how's it going, man?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing good. We're here to answer whatever poker question you may have for us.
Whatever poker question. Oh, yeah.
Did you forget that you sent me your phone number?
No.
Okay.
I think, what do you think is better, declaring all in or pushing all in?
I don't know that it matters at all. You mean as far as like when you're trying to get a call?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have an opinion. I guess like...
you can say what you normally do, right? Do you have a standard?
I normally say I'm all in, but I've also I guess I've experimented sometimes with, I guess you can make the case that when you push your chips out over the betting line that it almost looks like you're sort of giving your chips away. You're pushing them away from you, so someone could read body language as to that meaning that you're subconsciously giving your chips away to someone else. And then they can read that as that, and then make a maybe lighter call if they're using that tell to sort of pick up some information.
Did you find that on the poker black market or something? where did that come from?
You spend a lot of time at the poker table sitting and thinking about stuff.
Yeah, I have zero. I can tell you when I move all in, whether it's a bluff, whether it's value, whether I'm bluffing for value, whether I move in when I don't really know if I'm bluffing or going for value, whatever. It's always the same way. I always just grab my big chips, which are, in the 5-10 game Bellagio, just your black chips normally. Yeah. And I just move those chips forward one motion, and I look at the dealer and say all in.
Yeah. So you say that you do that when you're bluffing. You make sure you do that when you're bluffing.
That's my all in move.
Okay. Because I know some people will say when people declare all in and they're looking at the dealer, it's a sign of strength because they want to make sure the dealer the dealer doesn't screw it up in some fashion and everything proceeds as it should or whatever. But if Benton's doing that with his bluffs, then it's not a tell.
Yeah, I think as long as you're consistent, you're not going to give away anything. As far as picking up a tell on how somebody else does it, man, I'm in a loss. I really...
Yeah, I don't think it matters too much which way you should do it, unless you have trouble.
Give up tells.
Yeah, if you give tails verbally, with some shakiness in your voice or something like that, then you may just want to move your chips forward. But it could happen vice versa, where you give off some sort of a tell when you're moving your body more than you are speaking. So it varies greatly depending on the person and each situation. And also, if you're trying to pick up a tell on somebody, you might need a decent sample size and see them move in multiple times to really be able to apply some sort of perceived tell.
Yeah, that's a good point. You should never make your decision the first time you're playing against somebody and just say, oh, well, he kind of looked weak, and you're going to go on a tell. You should definitely look for more things like his range, based strength of his range in comparison to your range when trying to make a decision. I wouldn't put too much into whether he moves his chips forward or says all in.
Yeah. Sound good?
Yeah.
Did you have a hand question as well?
Yeah, I did have a hand question. It was at Aria. The villain has been pretty spewy. He's folded to my check raises twice. Effective stack sizes are 1,000.
It's a 2-5 game?
It's a 2-5, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Under the gun straddles to 10, and then what happens?
And then under the gun one makes it 25. I make it 75. And then under the gun one calls. The flop comes 10-5-10, 2 spades. Under the gun one checks to me. I bet 150. The pot is about 175. And then he raises 600.
Okay. All right.
How about it, buddy?
I think it's somewhat of a iffy spot. I mean, I can see like why you would pose the question, because 600 is pretty sizable in a 2-5 game. That's, you check raise to over 100 big blinds, and that's for sure sizable. I mean, you have a pretty strong hand here, though. It's the third best hand ever created. And 10-10-5, you're not losing to too much. You're obviously losing to a 10, and then there's like a lot in his range that could exist. Lots of flush draws, potentially some other pairs that he's just kind of freaking out with, which we see kind of often in a 2-5 game. Yeah, he'll have a 10 sometimes, but I think like kind of disregarding the sort of like raw dollars that that it kind of amounts to. If you're just looking at like ranges and like the different combinations of hands that he could have in this spot, I think I would probably just go with it. I would expect to lose sometimes, but I would still expect to be ahead, I think, enough times to justify just kind of going with it and getting it in there. What do you think about the ranges?
I mean, yeah, you're right in the ranges. The only thing that kind of troubles me is, can you give me the description of the guy under the gun +1 again?
He was like an old Asian guy. He was like, he rebought once or twice probably before I even got there. Mm-hmm. That's what some of the players were telling me.
Yeah, my only issue with it is I don't know how often these guys just check raise random pairs when we're betting 150 into 165. Mm-hmm. Our flop bet's so big here. I mean, if we're going to dissect the hand, we could just start with that. I mean, I personally don't like such a big flop bet. I think that you're going to end up actually getting all these hands like 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, mostly to fold when you want them calling. But again, we're not talking about that. I think arguments can be made for a much smaller flop bet, or even some people may want to check the flop, but definitely with a smaller flop bet. But as played, the only thing that concerns me is I think based on the old Asian guy who's closing the action after we make it 75 on the button, he can definitely have aces and kings in his range, which is a very viable way to play aces and kings. And the old guys like to, like, especially with kings, they like to make sure the ace doesn't come on the flop. Right. Then they just check raise every flop. Yeah, that's true. So I'm not saying we should fold the queens, but I'm not too thrilled about this spot when I bet 150 into 165 and get check raised to 600.
Yeah, I'm not loving it either.
I think if you wanted to make an exploitive fold, I wouldn't hate you. I mean, I could get behind it. It's a tough spot though. It really is. And it's a good hand. It's a good question. Yeah.
So what would you?
I don't know what I would do, just because I wouldn't be in this spot sizing wise.
What would you size it?
I would go pretty standard here. I would like with my whole range. It's gonna be pretty. I'm gonna make it about $70, a little bit less than half pot.
Okay, so you would size down a little bit from your.
Yeah, I mean 75 is fine if you want to 80, but somewhere in that range, somewhere in the half pot or just under half pot range. Yeah. I'm going to want to bet all my 10s. The problem is I'm not going to have many 10s in my 3-bet range at all. Yeah. I'm going to have like my big pairs, and I'm going to have hands that miss. The couple 10s I may have, I'm going to want to bet. But in general, I'm just not going to have many 10s, so I can't go sizing huge.
And then, so like say you see bet, 75, 80 on the flop, and he check raised to like 400. Yeah. What would you do then?
Probably have the same inner monologue I'm having right now trying to think about this hand. Yeah. Man, I'm just not a big fan of it, but to be honest, I probably wouldn't bet the flop because I'm going to have so few 10s in my range. I think that I probably would end up just checking my whole range. Because if I have ace-king, I'm going to check, and if I have aces, I'm going to check, and I'll just take one street out and check my whole range. Because I don't think I'm going to get 3 streets versus 2 9s anyway.
So what if it comes 8-8-4, 2 spades?
I guess you can start betting half pot there because his range will have less 8s in it as well. The problem is right now the under the gun 1's range has all the suited 10s in it, and where there's not going to be as many 8s in his range. So 8-8-X flop, I'll probably bet half pot with almost all my range and just continue. Okay. Continue from that point.
Okay. So it seems like it's pretty close as played. Like it doesn't really matter too much one way or the other, whether you fold or just kind of go with it.
If I've got to choose on this one, I'm just going to go with fold because we bet 150 into 165.
Yeah.
He check raised to 600. He's an older Asian guy. I'm going to go with fold. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like calling either.
Benton's folding. I basically never fold, so we already know what I'm doing. But I don't think it matters too much either way, since like we've said, he's going to have a better hand sometimes, and he's going to have other hands sometimes. But even when he has a flush draw, he's still going to have like pretty good equity. So it's not like it can't be too big of a mistake, unless he's just like totally freaking out and like you've seen him make some crazy plays in some other hands where he's just like massively overvaluing a hand. I don't think it can be too big of a mistake either way. So what'd you do?
No. I shoved, and he snap called, and then river came a king. He showed ace king.
He showed ace king.
Yeah.
Did he have a flush draw or no?
No flush draw.
Okay.
Yeah.
Massive button clicking going on, like we said.
It's 2-5 games. Poker is not dead.
Yeah.
So I mean, well, he had 2 overs at least. That's you forgot to dodge the king. You forgot to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And
Right.
he even said, good call, but I got lucky. So I was like, yeah, thanks.
Thanks for the explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. What can you do? But yeah, I think there's like a couple other takeaways. Like there's a lot of these hands, there's going to be like other takeaways from like aside from just the main decision point. Like there's always other things to think about. So I'm learning here as well. Ben is teaching me too about things that I didn't think of.
I mean, hey, I would have folded the queens. I mean, I would have saved 900, but I was still been wrong.
That's why you're playing. That's why Ben's playing 10, 20, 40, and I'm not, because he would have folded and not lost $1,000.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for the call, man.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
All right, cheers, buddy.
All right.
Have a good one.
Later.
All right. Bye.
Violent, some violence in the streets out there, in the 2-5 streets.
Yeah, you got to watch out for apparently the older Asian guys who just check bomb it, right?
Yeah, man, it's tough. There's craziness out there. All right, moving right along here. I think we are going to call Mr. Amir next. Dialing.
Hello.
Hey, Amir, it's Andrew in Benton.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Amir?
I'm fine. I got your call. I'm so happy you called.
It's good to talk to you. Where are you located?
I live in Toronto.
Toronto, our neighbors to the north. Awesome.
So, when I play cash game, I have a very big problem. At the beginning, usually I start like for 2-5 blinds, and I start with $200. So usually when I reach $400, my stack goes up, and suddenly it starts shrinking. I think I play a little bit loose, and I lose all my money.
Okay.
Lots of times it happens, I have no limit for myself. Okay, this is enough. Let's go home.
Yeah.
I don't know how to control myself. And if my stack gets stable, is it okay or not? Because sometimes I start with 200 and I just go home with $800.
Yeah.
But sometimes I don't know if winning 200 is fine or not.
Yeah. So the question is, sometimes you get up, you double your initial buy-in. Is it okay to leave at that point, or should you keep playing? Because sometimes or frequently you end up losing your profit as well as your initial buy-in, and you lose everything and what's happening there, etc.
Exactly.
So it's tough to know exactly what's going on because we don't see the hands as they unfold, because it could just be variance where you're because we don't really know like your win rate in the game, and you could be winning sometimes, losing sometimes, and it's just the normal variance over the course of a session.
Yeah. Also, he's talking about 2-5, so he's buying for 200. That's 40 blinds.
Yeah.
And he's doubling to 400. He's still at 80 blinds?
Yeah,
80 blinds. So, like that natural variance, your standard deviation is going to be more than your actual buy-in.
Yeah. So it's really not that big of a swing to go from 200 to 400 in a 2-5 game, and then from 400 to 0. It's not like that crazy. That happens, fairly regularly, even to good players. Yeah. So I mean, it's tough to really know exactly what's going on. But if the question is it okay to like hit and run, basically? Like, is it okay to quit after you double your stack and, kind of bank that win and then go back to the 200 stack size? There's no rules as to what's allowed and what's not okay or what's frowned upon.
Other than like sitting out, like the Bellagio, if you leave a table, you have to wait 2 hours before you come back with the...
Yeah, you can't just, you won't be able to just hop right back in a game without bringing the full stack that you left the table with. So you might be missing out on like some poker time or whatever. But you can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
If you're more comfortable playing shallow, then you should just play shallow. Just book the win. You might stunt your growth a little bit because you're not going to be getting into situations where you'll be playing with a fuller stack and maybe some more profitable situations. But if what you know best is how to play with a shorter stack, then you should just play with a shorter stack and quit when you have a bigger stack. But it really just depends on each person's situation.
Depends on the reason you're there too, right? If you're there to have fun and play, you just play and kind of whatever happens.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for your call. I was waiting for it for a long time.
Oh,
So finally, today was my turn. I'm happy for that.
Awesome. It was good to talk to you.
And thanks to your friend.
Yeah, you got it, Amir. Take care, buddy.
Thanks so much, Amir.
Yeah, sure.
Take
Good
care.
luck. Bye.
All right, Amir. He wants the knowledge. That's what you got to do to get ahead in poker.
Yeah.
You got to ask questions.
That's it. Take every opportunity afforded to you.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on. Looks like we're going to be calling. Not sure how to pronounce this. Either Yoni or Yanni.
We'll find out.
Here we go.
Hello?
Hello, is this Yanni?
Yes, it is Andrew.
Yes, and I'm here with my buddy Benton, and we're here to answer your poker question.
What's up, Andrew?
What's up, man?
How you doing?
Did I pronounce your name right? Is it Yanni?
It's Yoni, actually.
Yoni.
Yeah.
All right, Yoni. Got it. Where are you located?
I am right now in Seattle, but
Awesome.
the hand that I wanted to go over was from the Hollywood Resort and Casino in Florida.
Cool.
All right. I bet it's a juicy
The
one.
Hard Rock.
I bet it's a juicy one. They get some good games down there in Florida, right?
Very, very.
All right. Let's have it. Fire off the details to us.
We're playing 1-2.
Okay.
So the villain is in the small blind. I had just sat at the table. There was a straddle on the button.
Okay.
Villain opens for $15 in the small blind. The big blind called, under the gun +2 called, and then I look down in middle position at pocket kings. So I make it $45. It folds back to the villain in the small blind who calls, and I believe the big blind folded and middle position called as well. The flop comes 6 deuce deuce 2 clubs. Now the villain leads out for $100. Again, he's like super wild player. Like I don't know what to put him on in this specific situation. Well, it folds back to me, so I have a decision to make, and this is a spot where I don't think I made the correct decision, but I don't really know what decision there is to make. So I announced that I had like a very strong hand, and he kind of didn't react or anything. And
Okay, so I guess pretty interesting spot.
Yeah. So the villain has you covered. You guys both started with 500. You take about 450 into the flop, 455. He bets 100 of that. So your decisions are call and leave yourself about 300 back. Fold, which I don't think that's a viable option.
Nope.
Or raise.
What say you?
I would always call here.
Yeah.
I'm definitely. I don't think you make a mistake by going broke on this hand. I don't really foresee myself folding this hand. A few things that I may have done differently were, I think your sizing is a little bit small pre-flop. You went 3x after 2 calls of 15. I would tend to want to go closer to 5x of the original raise. I like to size 3 times the original raise plus the amount of callers. So in this spot, it would have been 15 times 3, which is 45, plus an extra 30 in dead money calls. So I would have wanted to size closer to 75 pre-flop as opposed to 45. You don't need to go quite that big. Maybe I would have settled on 65 or 70.
Yeah, like
But-
70 or 75.
But definitely bigger than the 45. But as played on the flop, I think call is way better than raise. Not saying we can't get called by worse when we raise. I think we can definitely still get called by some flush draws. We can get called by maybe some of his bigger pairs, but I think we shut out a whole bunch of hands that we would be very happy keeping in there, like ace-6 suited, 7s, 8s, 9s, hands that
Yeah.
may fold to a raise.
Yeah, it seems like most of the hands are not going to have that much equity. I mean, even if he has a flush draw, it's not going to matter anyway. So, okay, so we want to make it bigger on the flop.
Pre-flop.
Pre-flop, 60 to 75, somewhere in that range. And then once it comes 6-deuce-deuce and he leads into you, I much prefer a flat call in position. You're not going to be at risk of letting too many dangerous cards come off.
Yeah, the bottom line is allowing worse hands than yours that would fold to a raise to stay in is worth more value than trying to deny equity to other hands that were.
Yeah, I understand that. I know that. I felt that was obviously the wrong play after I took that route, but I just decided to ship there. I was 500 effective, and so was he, and he snap called. He rolls over ace-deuce offsuit, but it's like, I thought that if I would have had to call there and I was in position to him, but he did lead out on that flop, it's like, what would the next, you know what I mean? Like, what would come on the turn in terms of me making a decision? Yeah, and I, you're right, because in my head I was like kind of thinking like, what does he have here, jacks or queens, you know, and like, I guess a raise would have folded him out, but I don't know, it was just such a sticky situation in my opinion. I hate being in that spot, so.
I mean, I think I probably still lose my money as well against ace deuce there.
Yeah, it's eventually all going to go in, so it's not really that question of that. It's just about, it's mainly about like keeping his range wide on the flop, I think, and allowing him to continue with his bluffs on the turn and maybe the river as well.
I got you.
I mean, it's not like it's without merit to jamming it in, because it's, say he does have like jacks or tens or something like that, he's going to assign you some bluffs sometimes as well, and he's just going to go with it. And then, you know, maybe a queen or an ace or whatever, an overcard rolls off on the turn when you just flat call, and then you miss out on, maybe he just shuts down somehow. But there's also lots of good cards that can come, and there's also the parts of his range where he's bluffing with on the flop that sort of counterbalance that.
For sure.
All right, man. Thanks so much for the call.
Thanks, Yoni.
Thank you, guys. This is awesome.
All right, cheers.
Super happy to be part of this.
Yeah,
man.
Thanks for helping us.
Bye.
Take care, man.
Take care.
Okay. Battery changed. So now we're going to give a call to someone named Dan, who is a member of the Hand History Lounge. I think I mentioned the Hand History Lounge prior to, in the first video, I should say. So the Hand History Lounge is Benton's creation, right?
Yeah, Hand History Lounge is just a subscription site where myself and sometimes Andrew drops on in.
Yep.
And we review members' hand histories. It's essentially
pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I have pretty much a text group for guys who don't have a text group and who want some input on your hands. So
yep,
you can check it out, handhistorylounge.com, and come visit us.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. It's kind of like an extension of the often mentioned poker text group. I mentioned those in the vlogs a bunch. Just talk about hands as they come up and get some feedback, mainly from this smart gentleman right here. But yeah, I'm hanging out in there as well sometimes, and there's some other nice folks hanging out in there too.
A lot of good informative stuff going on. People enjoy not only posting hands but reading too. A lot of the feedback I get is people are they're learning a lot.
All right, so Dan is in the group and he's got a situation for us.
Yeah, he said something about a ruling. So let's see what he has to say.
Better be there, Dan, or you're kicked out of the group forever.
Hello?
Hey, is that Dan?
Yo, what's up?
Dan, you are on Calling Out episode number 2. You are here with you-know-who, Mr. Benton, and this is Andrew.
How you doing, Dan?
You're the greatest. Good to hear from you.
You're the greatest. Thanks for helping us out with some interesting situations. I hear you have some sort of a ruling that you want to chat about.
Yeah, so I live in Vegas. I was traveling to Albuquerque. They have one pretty popular room at the Sandia Casino.
Yeah, we talked about it in the first episode.
One of your callers on the last episode mentioned it.
Yep.
Exactly.
And so I'm in there. It's really good. It was a lot of action, deep stacked at like 1-2 and 1-3. So like, definitely a place I want to go back to. Definitely a place to check out if you're ever in the area. But it was just a super weird situation where I'm heads up at a river and I'm first to act. I end up having some like marginal hand with good showdown values. I'm not really sure I want to bet, So
Right.
I'm thinking about it, what I'm going to do here.
Yep.
And the opponent, he both knuckles and voices check out of order.
Okay.
So I'm like, sweet. There's some information right there. Check and go to showdown works for me. So I end up saying the words check
Right.
and exposing my hand.
Sure.
Everywhere I play, once you act out a turn, the action stands if there's no change, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So the dealer then says to me, action's on him. And I'm like, okay, well, I disagree, and my hand is face up right now.
So I assume you called the floor.
Thankfully, the dude was a gentleman, and he just mucked after about 5 to 10 seconds.
Oh, okay.
So I said to the dealer, like, he acted out of turn. I didn't change the action. Like, I'm pretty sure he got that one wrong.
Right.
And he's like, no, it was still on him.
Yeah.
And he's like, you can talk to the floor if you want, but we do it weird here. I was like, what? Like, I kind of do want to talk to the floor.
Okay.
So I just kind of walk over when I'm taking a break, and I told him exactly what I told you, and he's like, yeah, here the action doesn't stand at all if you act out of turn.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, dude, you're messing with me. Like, that can't be true.
Right.
Like, no way. And he's like, dude, the owner of the room is here. You can go talk to him. But that's how we do it. So I
Yeah.
was like, I think I will talk to him.
Okay.
And the response I got was, that's how we do it here. This is weird. And he literally comes back at me, like, zero explanation over and over. This is how we do it. This is how we do it. So, like, it was the first time in a long time I ever felt just like a piece of meat, not a customer, like not a dude that, has an option of whether to play there or not, just like literally a piece of meat
Yeah.
getting blown off.
Yeah.
So I ended up coming back to the table, and like regs from all over the room kind of like flocked to me, and they're like, dude, like we overheard your conversation, like we know what happened, and like we're completely against the ruling, and we have no idea why they do that here. But that's how they've always done it, and it drives us crazy.
Yeah,
So-
that's pretty lame.
Yeah, I mean it's a terrible ruling. It doesn't protect the players at all. It encourages angle shooting. It's obviously a terrible rule, but unfortunately there's such thing as house rules, and we have to abide by the house rules. And sometimes that means even following absolutely ridiculous house rules. Yeah, that's definitely does not protect. It's not player friendly at all, and it's definitely good advice to know for people who play at the casino. It's unfortunate because I heard they have some great games.
Yeah, it's also really lame that he's kind of like unwilling to sort of explain what the deal is and why he chose to change the rule that's pretty standard in every casino that we've all heard of. It's like a pretty basic, seems like a pretty basic customer service tenet to, have a normal conversation with your customer and, just kind of explain why things are the way they are.
It almost feels like that, like, oh, you don't like the rule, well, you don't have to play here. Kind of, not the way that you really want to be conducting business.
I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we'll hear from someone from Sandia following your story here.
And then,
Good piece of advice, too,
there's
Dan,
always a
is
standard, like,
just remember to protect yourself, too. If you're there sitting in the one seat and that person checks out a turn, while it would be nice for the dealer to say, sir, I don't recognize you, you're probably a tourist here, but there's nothing binding about that. You could also ask the dealer, say, so what happens now? Was that check binding? And if the dealer says, actually here it's not, at least you would have that information going forward. So don't be afraid to ask a question during your hand, especially if you're playing at a place that you're not familiar with. Most dealers out there that I've encountered are very friendly, and they won't step out of line and tell you what to do during a hand or answer something they shouldn't. But a question like that, they should be answering for you in the middle of the hand. And always protect yourself.
I wanted to share that with you guys and your listeners.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks for doing so.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for hanging out in the lounge, too, buddy.
Thanks a bunch. Thanks for the call. Talk to you later.
All right. We'll see you in the lounge.
Cool.
All right. Interesting.
Yeah. Weird.
If anyone plays at Sandia, wants to shed some extra light on that,
Yeah.
comment down below.
Kind of interesting to see what people think about it.
Yeah. All right. So we wanted to go over one hand real quick that's from the lounge itself.
Yep.
This was posted, do you know how long ago?
Within the last week, I asked people to put in their submissions.
Okay.
Because we had a little giveaway for them.
Submitted by Robert, who hangs out in the Hand History Lounge. And we said, if we pick your hand, whoever's hand we pick for the show, free shirt or hat from the Favorable Apparel store. So Robert's getting a free shirt or hat.
Yeah.
Let's go through his hand. Let's check it out.
Robert was playing at the Aria.
Yep.
1-3-0 limit game. So he's at an action-packed table on a Sunday afternoon.
Ooh.
He has the
Love
queen.
it.
Yeah, of course. He has Queen 10 of Hearts in the hijack. He starts the hand with $250.
Okay.
Action starts under the gun +2, who's a lag, opens to $13. The low jack, who's an aggressive player, calls $13. Robert calls in the hijack, and the button also calls $13. Okay. Flop comes Queen of Diamond, Jack of Heart, 9 of Clubs. The original raiser bets $40. The low jack calls 40. Robert calls 40. The button folds. $175 pot going into a turn of a 4 of Hearts. Now the original raiser checks. The low jack bets $85. This is where Robert's question comes into play. Robert's responses is, I don't think the low jack has anything, and I have top pair and a straight plus a flush draw. Straight draw plus a flush draw. I believe the original raiser has a pair plus an overcard or a straight draw. Thus, my decision is to get him out by shoving my remaining $200.
So
I think he shoves. So, yeah, he shoves all in. Kind of what happens after doesn't really matter. It's all about what happened to that point.
Yep.
So, pre-flop, I think we're probably both on line with pretty standard call.
Yep.
On the flop, what do you think? Original raiser bets 40, low jack calls. Personally, I would be calling as well.
Call all day.
No reason to raise.
Yep.
Turn's pretty interesting. Gives us the flush draw. Original raiser checks. Now the low jack bets 85 into 175. So it's betting about half pot. And we have about $200 left.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I guess I like calling again, I think. I don't know if we are able to get better to fold all that often. I mean, so I guess he's kind of thinking that like if the low jack? If the low jack has like king queen or maybe ace queen, that there's a chance that he can get him to fold those hands specifically.
Right.
And mainly just king queen, it seems like.
Right. But even with that, he's getting a ridiculous price. So you can't really expect the top pair to fold, right?
Yeah, it's just like pretty impossible. I mean, anything's possible, but it's just not that much more behind.
My thing that when I first read this in the lounge when he posted it, my biggest issue with the whole hand is I actually think it doesn't matter what he does on the turn.
Yeah.
I think because stacks get so shallow that like shoving versus calling is going to yield such a tiny percent of difference that's not the crux of the hand, if you will. I think what we really need to be looking at is your thought process when you happen to have a hand like this. And his thought process here is where he says the low jack, I don't think he has anything, and I have top pair plus a straight and flush draw. I believe the original raiser has a pair plus an overcard or a straight draw. Thus, my decision is to get him out by shoving for my remaining 197. I think that maybe we all do it, especially in lower limits. We tend to put our opponents on way too narrow of a range. He's specifically saying low jack has nothing, and the original raiser has a pair plus an overcard or a straight draw.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just way too narrow to be looking.
Right.
And when we start narrowing ranges too much, we can start getting in spots where we level ourselves and make some pretty big mistakes, some pretty big bad calls or some bad folds.
Yeah.
By narrowing down ranges too much.
Right.
Especially on boards like this that are so drawy. I mean, how are we supposed to know if they have a straight draw or a pair or a set?
I think it just comes back to like what we said originally, like pretty much what you just said. I mean, are you ever going to get him to fold better? Just it doesn't seem like it's that much more money.
Right. So yeah, that's it. The way the hand plays out, Robert shoves, and the original raiser who checked the turn decides to call off, and he had jack 9 for 2 pair, and the river ends up coming at jack, and he makes a full house. Robert loses the hand and comes post in the hand history lounge to see if he did anything wrong.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, you just never know. I mean, you can try to sort of pigeonhole people's hands and, you know, assign specific hands to players. But,
Right.
I mean, I would never expect the original guy to have Jack 9 there.
Yeah, with an odd line, right? Like lead the flop and then check the turn. And,
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think you should. I think the best thing to do is kind of focus on your hands a little bit more so, rather than trying to figure out what these random 1-3 players are doing in these different hands. And just play it super straightforward, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't try and I wouldn't try and manipulate like a 1-2 or 1-3 player with like trying to get them off the certain hands, because A, you don't know really what hand they have, and B, you don't know how they're going to react, because they don't even know how they're going to react.
Before you started the vlog, and I mean this is before you and I became friends, you used to play a ton of 1-3, right?
Yeah.
What would be your biggest tip to a 1-3 player? Would it just be play straightforward, bet your hands?
Yeah,
with
for
value?
sure. I mean, it's carried over a lot into my 5-10 game. I mean, I played a lot of 1-3 like for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years or something in Vegas. Yeah. And it's carried over into my 5-10 game a lot, where it's for sure mostly exploitive, because people don't like to fold, and I'm also included in that somewhat. But people don't come to the poker table to fold, especially in lower stakes where the money doesn't hurt as much. It's much more entertaining to see showdowns, see lots of cards come out, and see what happens on the river. Yeah. And it doesn't hurt that much monetarily to get to that point.
Right.
So try and keep it as straightforward as possible. That's my advice.
Yeah, pretty good advice. That's more or less what I've been telling a lot of my students in our lessons, and I think that's just the way to play 1-3. That just gets the money still.
Yep. So that's it. Thanks, Robert. Thanks for the hands.
Yep.
Hat or shirt. Let me know what you want, and that'll do it.
Yeah.
That's episode 2 right there.
One
more mention for the Hand History Lounge. If anyone wants to come hang out with us and talk about some more hands, handhistorylounge.com. Find us there.
And also a big thank you to Poker Atlas.
Oh, yeah.
Giving us some office space.
Poker Atlas hooked us up with the office space here.
Yep. If you're looking for tournament information, casino information, head to pokeratlas.com.
There you go. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Till next time.
Episode 3. We'll see you there.
All right.